Jai Prabhuji. Welcome to our Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. This is a class about Prabhuji's Bhakti Yoga book, The Path of Love. We had a first class, which was a very general overview regarding the approach we'd like to use in this course. And we made some important points that are components of what is the attitude that we would like to establish within ourselves when approaching the writings of Prabhuji. And so even though that we touched on all the important points, it requires a little bit of a further explanation because it was just a very basic introductory. Now we cannot go into full depth into all of them. Many of them are a yoga within themselves. For example, the master-disciple relationship, there is a yoga that is Guru Yoga. And so there is so much substance and meaning and importance within all of them. We will not get into Prabhuji's book ever if we touch and elaborate on all of them fully. But we want to create something that is very understandable. Even if you haven't learned anything previously about what is Guru, what is disciple, and what are Holy Scriptures. And so in the next class, we would actually get into the writing themselves. But this one, let's recap the points and see what can further be explained. The most important point that I made, and the one that is most relevant through all the classes, especially in the Institute that are not the words of Prabhuji himself, is that as a disciple, there isn't anything you can give, clarify, add to what are the writings themselves, the message itself, the wisdom itself in Prabhuji's writings and all the Holy Scriptures. They are the perfect wisdom as it should be given. So let's make a general recap and then go point by point, see what we can add to it, how we can give examples of things to make it more approachable for us, more digestible for us. The first point that was made is the spiritual wisdom is complete and perfect. That will always be true in in Prabhuji's writings, in any religion, in any path, in the words of spiritual masters, the writings of the spiritual masters, the Holy Scriptures, the religion, the truth and wisdom for the benefit of human beings is perfectly stated there. Now, here is where the problems actually begin. Because even though we are given the highest truths, we do not have the proper receptacle in order to be able to process it in a way that's beneficial for us. And one of the mistakes that we make is defining things in good or bad. For example, the whole concept of sin and wrongdoing and all these things have driven humankind so far from religion, and that should be completely eradicated. Now, I represent the retroprogressive yoga path, but I represent my understanding of it. If you'd like to understand 100% what it is through what you can achieve spiritually, you should go and read what Prabhuji writes, not through me. Because for me, it will be through the level of understanding that I have achieved within my discipleship. And the same goes for any other disciple. But in order for you to associate with Prabhuji's, what Prabhuji writes on what is the retroprogressive yoga path, you can see it in his website, for example. You would have to have some background in understanding something about Prabhuji, because if you don't know anything, unless you are so spiritually developed, it will be something new and foreign to you, and it will be very hard for you to make something very useful for your spiritual life. And so disciples bring each one different beautiful perspectives from their discipleship, from their path, and give and shed light on what it means. But it always is a perspective. And an example for this was actually something that I said in the previous class. Because we were speaking about master-disciple relationship, I was exemplifying the spiritual masters and Prabhuji through the prism of perfected surrendered beings, perfected disciple. And as much as it is truth, it's only a very small perspective. If I were to explain what is a spiritual master, this is not what I would use from my eyes, or when you read about what is an enlightened being, this is not the actual words used, but this is true, but it's a truth in a certain context. It's a truth that tries to exemplify something when speaking about a certain topic. It doesn't encompass the totality of what is a spiritual master. And so this will make sense, because when we speak about religions, we speak about something that is given to humankind in relation to where we are situated and what speaks to us. And as much as it is truth, it's always a very certain perspective, a very certain specific point of view in order to help us to advance spiritually. In every religion, it is said that the highest truth and the ultimate truth is beyond the words and beyond what the mind can comprehend. It is outside of the abilities of the mind. And so still, spiritual masters and religion offer this truth, but it is in a way reducted and specified in a way that it's relatable to the human being, which uses the mind and its abilities. So let me give you a very specific, a different example to show what I mean. In this specific class, I will give a lot of examples related to children, because it's very relatable and easy to understand. Big concept in examples that we are very familiar with. And so let's say that in kindergarten and the first grade, children who come to learn, which mean about something they do not know, meaning there is some ignorance about something. Not that, ignorance is not a bad word. We need to use the truth when we speak about important topics, which also will pertain to us being ignorant of our real nature and what is the meaning of life. And so ignorance is not something that is insulting or offensive. It is a fact. And so because children in kindergarten and first grade do not have the same capacity as more developed ones in high school have, um, to stay focused, to make themselves study things they do not like, to make certain efforts that because they have developed already. In school, teachers try, for example, one of the generally least favorite subjects is math. Teachers try to make it more relatable to children. So, for example, if you need to learn 1 plus 1 is 2 or 2 plus 1 is 3, if they just say it like that, they lose the concentration of the children. And so they need to bring little things, and they can even give it as candies and games. And then if you need to count, if a child needs to count candy, oh, this they like. And so what is done is certain of a beneficial manipulation in order to attract the attention of the child, in order for him to assume concentration and sort of dispel his ignorance. So he will be engaged, because otherwise he will not be engaged in those things. You need to capture the attention. And so we know children, and we see the difference, and we know what attracts them. And when we try to teach them different things, we try to teach them in a way that will be less difficult for them, and something more engaging, more inviting. Now, the same goes to religions. Of course, the ultimate reality, because it's indescribable and it doesn't relate to us, if we use all the words, the actual, words that even though should not be used are being used about something very abstract, we don't know how to relate to these things. And this is so far away from how we live our daily lives that we must make it easier for the practitioner, for the engager. And so religions, for example, let's say the Vedic religion, it offers different approach, which, let's say, Bhakti Yoga is the path of love. It's through your emotion, and Jnana Yoga and Raja Yoga and all these different, and Karma Yoga is using what you already have and what you already use and what you already like, which can be your emotions, your intellect, your actions. The Karma Yoga is the way of action, because we cannot not do anything. So it engages us and gives us the wisdom in a way that we can practice it in our lives. And that is important to understand, because many times as children we do not like for example, the regulative principles of religion. And of course, no child likes it, and we think, oh, trying to control. You probably heard enough of it. I should not reinstate it. The wisdom is given to us as lost children, because we forgot what we come to do in this life. And of course, what I mean when I say that is for the spiritual seeker. If you do not have the question of what is the meaning of life, and you are happy with what you are doing, please, this does not pertain to you. This is by no means a judgment or saying, remember, good and bad should be out the window. But for the spiritual seeker, there should be an understanding why religions are in a certain way. Because as much as you have compassion and guidance to the child, that you see him. If you see a lost child in the street, you will try to help him. In the same way, the spiritual master try to help us, because they are beings of great compassion, and not because they need to do anything, but you see people lost and you want to offer this help. And imagine you're walking in the street and seeing a lot. How would you look at somebody who is seeing a crying and lost child and not offer some help as an adult? It's horrible. And in a way, this is what religions and spiritual masters are doing, even though we don't understand. And so the regulations are just like the same explanations as children. If you see somebody parent a child, but that doesn't give him any structures or rules, and let him do just what he wants because it's fun and it's great, and don't go to sleep and eat as much as you want, and don't listen and don't obey, you say this is bad parenting. This is horrible. What kind of life will this child have in the future? So this is how the regulative principle in religions and the instructions and the guidance of the spiritual masters should be looked at, because we act like lost children, and when we engage with things we like, we lose ourselves and we lose the measures, and we get entangled and forget what's important. And so this is what the religions comes to show us. But they relate to whatever we get lost in, because we like money very much, and power, and fun and pleasures and all these things, and we get entangled in all kind of things that society built and are now taught to us that this is what life is about. Even, if you take any person and they grow up in a place that's not far away from society, no girl will have what so many women today have, the dream of having the white dress wedding. This is not something that you're born with thinking. This is something that you're taught. This is something that you see around you, and because of that you think this is what you want. You don't want to have, if you've never seen luxury and money and all this and power, you do not seek that essentially as a human being. These are things, and we get confused, and we got confused in those things. And so because we have the tendency to get confused, religions come and explain to us, listen, there needs to be some measure. Just like you would say to a child, sure, you can have candy, but take 2. You know why? Because the sugar will affect you bad. And you know why? Because you will have problems in your teeth and health problems, and so on and so on and so forth. It's very easy to understand when it's applied to children. It's very hard to understand the amount of love and compassion within Holy Scriptures and the writings and guidance of spiritual masters, because we feel we do not want to follow and we want to do whatever we want. But like children and lost children, we get into problems. And so what happens is that, like, if what we've come to this life to do is sort of find the central axis of our being, we stray away. We're farther and farther away, and so there's a lot of problems of anxiety and depression, and even a fear to be with oneself alone, because it's scary. What's innately ours scares us. Our presence alone scares us. And we must learn to reintegrate and develop what is naturally the purpose of human life, and differentiate that between the rest of what we are doing within society that doesn't always make sense, but our mind is so habituated into the rules of society that don't always make sense. Let's take an example. Hinduism speaks of being of vegetarianism, meaning to not harm animals. Ahimsa is something that's within the Vedic religion, Sanatana Dharma. It is an eternal rule within Hinduism. That will never change. In society, this is just for the sake of explanation. It's just to illustrate something. In society, we can eat a chicken but not eat a cat, eat this animal but not this type of animal, but because we and kill these animals as a pleasure or fun, or wear them, or all kinds of... It doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when you look at all these animals. Why did we decide that this one can live and this one we can just enjoy? And we get... You could see somebody eating a chicken, so happy and so pleasured by it, and completely distraught if it was a puppy. It blows your mind, right? Why is that? Why do we believe that this is allowed? It doesn't make sense. When you look at the totality of animals, you don't see why that makes sense. And many things like that in society are built and also all the time fluctuating. The rules of a religion are eternal for the benefit of humankind. Ahimsa will always be ahimsa, mean non-violence. Today in society, we can see, for example, boxing matches. One person with another person hurting, causing physical injuries to one another, while a room and a crowd are cheering and betting and taking pleasure in that. That should be evaluated. There's a problem there. And we learn that this is right, and we never question that. And so the rules of society have a problem within them. They're not eternal. They keep changing. There was times that slavery was according to the law. You could hold slaves. If you take one thing and another thing and it doesn't make sense, you try to question, why is this okay? What is the governing rule for this? It doesn't make sense because it's not built on the purpose of human life. The rules of religion are always eternal rules. They always make sense, and they always will make sense because it's for the benefit of humankind now. We get messed up with them because we were taught that we are good or bad or all these things, and in spiritual search, this should be thrown out the window. Prabhuji, the Retroprogressive Yoga, according to my understanding, will never take you into that realm. This is always about questioning and doubting. It's not about good and bad. It's about observation. And observation teaches you about yourself. And the primary purpose of human life is knowing who and what you are. And so all these wisdoms and religions come to show you eventually this thing. But we get caught up in so many other problems and even wrong explanations that we don't use them properly. So that was just touching the first point. That was just touching the first point, which is speaking why the wisdom in the writings and the religions is complete and lacking nothing, but it encompasses a lot within it. One of the other points I'd like to make in regards to religions and guidance of spiritual masters is, again, example related to children. And I give these examples only because in nowadays religions and have such a grave misunderstandings of what they meant to do. But as we spoke before, they are only here to, as we previously mentioned, they're only help here. They're only given to us as an instrument and tool for us to develop. And so we'll get back to the children examples because they're really good ways to understand how things are used and how the misunderstanding is created. Children do not like to have, most children naturally structure and would like to have fun and do whatever they want. And as adults, in certain extent, we also want that. This is why we stray away from religions, and because there is the restricting capacity. And it's a restriction that is made in order to help us not get lost. For example, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I can't even explain to you how many times I heard throughout my entire life people use it. And many times when anger appears, and anger that is uncontrolled and hurt and all these things lead to a little bit of a vengeance, and say people use it, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is in order for retaliation. And obviously this is in the Holy Scriptures, but what is missing to see from that is how compassionate it is. And I will share with you what I understand about it. What I understand about it is, as human beings, you get angry. You have this attribute that you get angry, and that means emotional, and it takes over, and you lose control, and you want to express the hurt and anger and whatever it is that you're feeling. And because that happens in you, there is this guidance. But this guidance, actually, if you look at it, is more for moderation. Be moderate within your anger. It's telling you, if somebody did A, B, and C to you, don't do, because of anger, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Right? It just means it's to put a little bit of sanity within our human attributes that get out of control. And that's the highest form of compassion that can be. It says, it's okay. We don't condemn you. We don't say, do not be angry. Anger is never to be allowed. You should repress all your anger. You say, just react. Put some observation, moderation within it. Don't go completely only after your emotional aspects. And that's lost within it. And so when people fight and countries fight and wars and this, everything, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you've probably yourself heard enough about it. And so we take certain things and we misunderstand them, and then we use the religion in order to harm others, and it's a whole mess of things, and this is insanity in a way. It's insanity. We take the little points of guidance that are given to us so compassionately, and we misuse them. If you're angry with somebody else, be angry in moderation. And so we don't like these rules and we don't like the restrictions, but they're beneficial for us, because look what anger, attachment, jealousy, rage, need of power, of dominance have done to this world. Not really beautiful things. And so we should remember always that when we dislike something in religion, it's mainly because we are disturbed by it. It's because we don't look at it and see and find the benefit. But when we look at our children and we look at the children of society, we love them and we want to protect them and we want to offer them guidance, and we want to leave the things from this world that are too harsh and wait until we share that with them, because we understand that there is something in children's innocence that we want to keep. And by that, it means that each one of us intrinsically understands and values innocence. And this is why we want to offer the children of the world the most amount of time possible for keeping their innocence. Why? Because without speaking about it, we all understand the importance of it, but we don't offer the same to ourselves. And the lost innocence is what gets us entangled further and further in this world. And religions, many times the restrictions of them are in order for us to keep that innocence. In the same way we look at children and we want to love and protect them. And so we teach them in school because they are ignorant, but we make it accessible for them because they still they cannot relate. They don't have the love of the subject or the interest yet. And so we bring them in slowly into things, and we want to keep their innocence, but we also want to teach them to be human beings that know how to obey and have structures in their lives and all these things. And if you see and you take these along how we are with children, and you look how the religions and the holy scriptures and the guidance and the spiritual master are with us, you will see a lot of parallels. And that is because it's exactly the same thing. And so when you look at anything in this world and you look at it through the right perspective, you can use it beautifully. Let's say a knife. Somebody can go around cutting up people, and that's just horrible. But if a surgeon does that, he's saving lives. So it's how we use the things. It's not the knife itself. It's not the religions itself. It's how we use things for our benefit, or misunderstand things or misuse things for our wrong ways. And then we get entangled. And so this is what we want to understand about holy scriptures and religions. It's given to humanity in order for us to be able to advance. And the writings of the spiritual masters and the writings of Prabhuji are an open door for us to be able to question ourselves and seek through what that topic is, how to evolve and develop. And that's actually something very, very beautiful, and we want to keep that. Another point that we were speaking about is being a disciple. Being a disciple, we gave a explanation. I gave the story about Prabhuji, and I can give many stories about Prabhuji in the point of view of him being in practicing discipleship or being a disciple. They will all be beautiful, they will all be divine, because he's a blessed being that he's prepared and so developed that there is not a problem with that. But humanity, human beings, because we take it, as we explained, in a wrong way. There is the spiritual look to things, and then there's the worldly look to things, the worldly outlook to things, and the worldly outlook to things, being a disciple is being less. And it means that there is somebody that is telling me and is controlling me, and I need to offer them which, when you put it down and write it down, could be true, but the outlook is so ugly, and the outlook is so wrong, and you fail to see that your benefit or I fail to see that my benefit is what is established through this relationship. And we can look at it also when we look at things in this world, but we're so used to them, we never even stop to think about how does it look from a different point of view. Let's say even continue with the school system and training system and things that we are using within this world to be able to accomplish or achieve something. And so even, let's say somebody studies medicine, you go to school and you don't sleep and you go into depths and you have this, look at the entire situation of what it means. And then you have to do after you graduate, you need to do years that you completely subjected to so much work and sleep deprivation, and you don't earn any money at the beginning, and you need to learn, and you need to learn from others, and the doctors are very, whoever is superior to you can be very strict for you. Why? Because if you are trying to be a surgeon and because somebody is not strict enough with you to teach you the right way, you're going to end up killing people. But it makes sense to us. It makes sense to us to put this amount of effort for the final goal of having a diploma and the ability to practice medicine. This is just one aspect of the human being, his career. And let's say you have such a high goal within society of reaching the Olympics, and you need to have a trainer, of course. And you have restrictions of diet and restrictions, and you need to subject yourself to so many difficult trainings, and the trainer will not tell you, my dear beloved, whatever your name may be, can you please do this? It needs to be strict with you and enforce things, and this makes sense to us. Why? Because there is a certain goal and you want to achieve it, and so all these things in life make sense to us. But when it comes to spiritual life, which is not career of adapting yourself, teaching or training to be a specific anything, it's actually untraining yourself from everything that you are, then we look at things different. then it's no, it needs to be, we should not condemn the ego. And it's not about condemning the ego or how we look at it. And it's, guys, here's the thing. It's our outlook that's the issue. It's our outlook that is the problem. We fear things we are not familiar with. And if things are familiar to us, even if they don't make sense, we embrace them. But we must learn to look at what is beneficial, what is right. What we want, again, is development into understanding what we are doing here as human beings. And so when we look at the spiritual master and we use improper eyes, we have a lot of misunderstanding about these relationships. And it's important for this reason to establish the right one, because when you come to read the Bhakti Yoga book or whatever it is the master is teaching or his writings, and you use all the worldly logic of, oh, this is right, this is wrong, this is why, how dare he say this, how dare somebody tell you you're ignorant. But what is the word ignorance? We don't even look at it. We go through things and we don't go through them properly. And so this is why we're saying the master-disciple relationship in Prabhuji's writings and in all religions is essential. It's essential to be a disciple. It's essential for us to understand Bhakti Yoga, not for us to become ritualistic beings in the path of Bhakti, but to be able to question what is love. It is important for us to be able to look at how we look at what love is, what we understand love to be, and be able to doubt our ways. And that could cause pain. Why? Because we have needs and wants that are instinctive, and in the same time, we want to go and transcend what is instinctive, and that doesn't go together for us. And so if somebody tells us that we are attached and attachment is not beneficial for us, we get upset because we need it. It's a sense of security. It's a sense of meaning as instinctive human beings, because the instinct within us is what functions. And so within the writings of Prabhuji and religions and Holy Scripture, we will find things that we will have to be able to have the courage to look at and question if what we seek is to advance spiritually. And that means to question, do I even know what love is? Have I ever been able to not only look at life through how I can be loved? I want to be loved like this, like that, like this. What is love? Have I ever offered love? Have the relationships that I have been real love? Because if love is, how is it gone? There's so many things. And so each one of these paths will take us into questioning. And questioning can be menacing and scary, because we do not, if you discover that you've never loved a person in your life, it could be heartbreaking. It could be very blessed spiritually, because that means it's the first step for you to be able to understand what real love is. But to the one who grew up in this world and he's afraid of not being successful or being wrong or good and bad, all the things that we stated. It could be, no, me, a selfish being that's never loved? It's a hard question to ask. It's a hard topic to address. But this is the way we advance spiritually. We're willing to ask ourselves the difficult questions and look into things and see what is instinctive, what requires understanding. And again, look how much effort is being put into a lifetime of a career that in your eternal aspect, in what you are eternally in life, means nothing. It's a moment of time of accomplishment. And one time I saw this video of nurses speaking about people that are about to pass away. And they said the most amazing thing is that nobody ever said at that specific moment, I didn't work enough, hard enough, I accomplished more in my career. The things that are said are so different, because when you approach the moment of death, you approach these very meaningful questions about what is life. And everything that we pushed aside and covered up with what the world teaches us that should be accomplished and what the pleasures that we seek, they are just coverings. And when we approach the real moments, none of these questions will appear. And the real questions are, have I done enough, left enough? I remember, I think, I wish I would have spent more time with my loved ones, was one of the main ones. And so the things that matter to us, we cover them with a lot of what this world has to offer to us, and we believe that this is what we want, but we need to question if that is truly what we want and truly what we believe and understand. And if it's so, of course we should follow each one what is right for him. We are not preaching here anything about what is right for you, but how to question ourselves and what is the proper means of questioning, and that is through using the knowledge of the most advanced spiritual realized beings and their religions for the benefit of our spiritual progress. And so for our next class, what I recommend is, because we're going to enter and speak about, read from Prabhuji's writing, Bhakti Yoga, the Path of Love, is asking yourself about love, what love means to you. You can also ask other people what love means to them, and see how this topic, this word that all of us use has such a different meaning to all of us. And we can further elaborate once we get into the book, but at least begin to question what it means to us, when we understand love to be, because any scripture of a realized spiritual master is aimed for one thing: questioning your understanding as it is. And it could lead to any direction. There is no right and wrong, there are no good and bad, but there is an openness within us to learn what love is. And through the guidance of a spiritual master and his wisdom, we will utilize these blessed words within our class. Jai Prabhuji.